Let's go, Mercury!
Get on the way, man. Get on the way. Come on, baby.
Now, get up, Buck. Let's go, get it! Turn it up!
Do it.
Baby!
Do it.
Wake up with your guys! Shake it loose! Big mistake! Let's go!
Stick up! Get him!
Hey, Frank! Frank! Get in there! Let's go!
Rip him!
Loose ball, loose ball. Get it, get it.
He's open! Warfield!
What had begun like a dream ended as a nightmare. In the muck and mire of the Oakland Coliseum, the Miami Dolphins' determined climb to the top came to an end. A season full of accomplishment and pride ended as the Raiders stopped the Dolphins in an AFC playoff game. The defeat was a sad ending to a remarkable success story. But the incredible tale of the Miami Dolphins started long ago. Since their beginning, the Dolphins have been a young, exciting team, and the 1969 edition was no exception. Unfortunately, their youth often meant mistakes. The talent was there, the victories were not. The Dolphins had the worst record in the AFL in 1969. It was a year of frustration, a year of pain. In 1970, Don Shula became the Dolphins' head coach, but he was only part of the new look. A series of shrewd acquisitions brought the Dolphins talented veterans like tight end Marv Fleming, receiver Willie Richardson, and a free agent kicker, Garo Yepremian. But in the sharpest deal of all, Miami picked up Paul Warfield. Smooth, fast, and agile, Warfield added instant explosiveness to the Dolphins' offense. In Miami, 1970 became a year of excitement as Dolphin fans were treated to a dazzling display of football talent. With Don Shula, new players, and an improved attitude, 1970 was the year of the new look, the new season, the new era. After losing to Boston, the Miami win streak began in Houston, where the Oilers' Charlie Johnson was first to notice the Dolphins' improvement. A rugged defense and a ball control offense were Don Shula's two main goals. Both were apparent. And touchdowns by rookie Jim Mandich and Howard Twilley gave Miami a 20-10 victory. Although a victory over Houston was impressive, the Dolphins' first big test came against Oakland, a team Miami had never beaten. Despite a near hurricane, the Dolphins' young defense wiped out Oakland's renowned offense. In spite of the slippery field, Bob Greasy and Paul Warfield flashed early evidence of their big play potential. By himself, Warfield is a potent weapon, but paired with Bob Greasy, the combination is unstoppable. For the first time in their history, Miami beat the Raiders, but there was little time for joy as they ran head-on into the New York Jets, another team the Dolphins had never beaten in their 5-year existence. But the spell the Jets had cast ended because this was 1970, and these were the new-look Dolphins. Once more, it was the combination of Greasy to Warfield that caused the real damage. Warfield left defenders stumbling in his wake as he slithered in and out of the Jets' secondary. When Greasy and Warfield had completed their magic act, the result was a 20-6 Miami victory. Broadway Joe and the Jets had been the third opponent to discover that the former doormats from Miami had become contenders. In Buffalo, the Dolphins won their 4th straight, 33-14. Although the offense had received most of the publicity, a shored-up defense had been the backbone of all the victories. Number 40, Dick Anderson, led a stingy secondary that often gave Miami good scoring position. And when you have a pair like Greasy to Warfield, that's the ball game. Paul Warfield had become all Miami had hoped for. A swift, graceful wide receiver capable of exploding for the big play. Every fake, sharp and precise. Every catch, a breathtaking picture. Every touchdown, a monument of self-expression. Warfield added excitement and explosiveness to the offense, and the result had been victories. But suddenly, the ugly face of defeat appeared. Paul Warfield watched in disbelief as his former teammates from Cleveland snapped the Dolphins' win streak 28-0. The next week, Don Shula made a homecoming trip to Baltimore, but had the door slammed in his face 35-0. Then in Philadelphia, the Dolphins hit bottom as they fell before the lowly Eagles 24-17. The once powerful passing game had become anemic and ineffective. The cohesive team effort that had marked the first 4 victories was mysteriously absent. It was a time of frustration and confusion, a time when no one was sure what was happening. Everything seemed to go wrong at once, and even the ball seemed to take the wrong bounce. The joy of victory had vanished, and the agony of defeat had appeared. Miami was at the crossroads. Every player had to summon up new courage and determination to revive the winning spirit. Then, in the 9th game of the season against New Orleans, the winning spirit returned. It was there in the determined effort of Willie Richardson. It was there in the renewed vigor of a defensive back like Lloyd Mumford, number 26. And it was there in the clutch receiving of a versatile back like Jim Kick, number 21. The winning spirit, the effort, the determination, but particularly the pride that had marked the Dolphins' win streak had suddenly reappeared. Miami rolled over the Saints 21-10. But the most important occurrence was the return to form of Bob Griese. Griese hit on 15 of 19 passes and was named the NFL's Back of the Week. After having been in a slump, the magic talents of Bob Griese were back. Griese is an essential element in the Miami attack, and as he goes, so go the Dolphins. When he shines, Miami wins. When he doesn't, they lose. It's as simple as that. Bob Griese is a one-man circus, an escape artist in shoulder pads, a high-wire performer who scrambles along a tightrope of danger, a gambler who flirts with disaster and comes up a winner. He is a born entertainer, but Bob Griese is also a leader. His scrambling is unmatched, but it is as a passer that Griese has developed. Running or throwing, through winning and losing, Bob Griese had become a pro. The 10th game of the season was the big one, a rematch with the Baltimore Colts, who were riding high in first place in the AFC East. The two teams met before in Baltimore, where the Colts beat Miami 35-0, and painful memories of the first Colts game still lingered with Miami. Don Shula recalled how Baltimore kick returners had breezed through the Dolphin defense for easy scores. Bob Griese remembered how a master named Unitas had taught him a few strokes in the art of quarterbacking. In the first meeting, Miami had been shut out, and every man recalled the embarrassment of the final score. But now, this was Miami, the Orange Bowl, and the Dolphins were going to prove they were winners. They proved it by the play calling and running of quarterback Bob Griese. They proved it with the passing of Griese to Paul Warfield. The Dolphins showed they were winners as 40 men exerted an all-out effort for 60 minutes. They were the new-look Dolphins, but even an original Dolphin like number 89, Carl Noonan, made a valuable contribution. But the play that broke the game open was a 77-yard punt return by rookie Jake Scott, number 13. The 34-17 victory was the greatest win in Miami's 5-year history. For Don Shula, it was sweet revenge over his old team, and although they didn't know it at the time, Miami had defeated the eventual world champions. Miami's 6th victory took place in Atlanta before a national television audience. All season long, the kick returning of number 13, Jake Scott, and Mercury Morris had been instrumental in giving the Dolphins strategic field position. From there, the bull backfield of number 39, Larry Zonka and Jim Kick took over. This formula resulted in a 20-7 Miami victory. Power is their password, touchdowns their result. Jim Kick and Larry Zonka. Larry Zonka's method is that of a steamroller. Basic, brutal power. By using his forearm as a bludgeon, Zonka clubs down any would-be tacklers, and this technique made him the second leading runner in the AFC. Jim Kick, a wild and woolly cowboy from Wyoming. While Kick is an exceptional runner, versatility is his hallmark. He can catch as well as run, and was the only player in the conference to appear in the top 10 in both categories. Kick and Zonka gave the Dolphins a double-barreled power weapon that was complemented by the sheer speed of Eugene Mercury Morris. Each run is a weaving, twisting adventure through a field of danger, a swashbuckling journey goalward through a maze of tacklers. Mercury Morris possesses a reservoir of talent that has not yet been fully realized. He is blessed with blazing speed that makes him a threat each time he touches the ball. But Mercury gets upset when he doesn't go all the way every time. Mercury's chance came against Boston in the season's 12th game when he rocketed it 96 yards with the opening kickoff. Against Boston, Miami scored just about every way possible. If it wasn't a Morris touchdown, it was the return of a blocked kick by number 26, Lloyd Mumford. As in all the victories, the 37-20 Miami win relied on the clutch kicking of Garo Yepremian. The victory was a polished professional effort, and the Dolphins even tried a little deception. While the well-proportioned Scatback received attention from the press, Boston's Joe Kapp received attention from the Miami defense. With their 4th win in a row and their 8th of the season, the Dolphins were hitting their peak, and much of the credit went to the defense. The improved Miami defense was the result of the enthusiasm of youngsters like rookie Jake Scott, number 13, and second-year man Bill Stanfill. The improvement of a rookie like number 57, Mike Colon. The maturity and experience of a Nick Bonaconte, and the development of 2 defensive tackles like John Richardson and Manny Fernandez. They were 11 angry men, Mayhem's Marauders, the Havoc Machine. The Miami defense allowed fewer points than any team in the conference, and it was the secondary that made a big contribution. Number 40, Dick Anderson, has become a slick pass thief who knows how to run with the ball, but that's not how he earned his nickname, the Sticker. A big surprise in the secondary was Jake Scott, number 13. A former All-American from Georgia who played 1 year in Canada, Scott became an instant star. He is a deft pass stealer with breakaway speed, and he became doubly valuable to the Dolphins as a kick returner. The development of a coordinated defense was just one more phase in the evolution of a winner. The New York Jets flew into Miami intent on avenging an early season defeat, but Super Bowl thoughts already had started to enter the Dolphins' minds. Number 81, Howard Twilley, another original Dolphin, provided some clutch receiving, and with a playoff berth in mind, Miami decided to polish up a few new maneuvers. But old familiar tactics worked just as well, and another strong defensive effort, combined with 3 Garo Yepremian field goals, gave Miami a 16-10 victory. In previous years, Miami had never beaten New York. In 1970, they did it twice. All that stood between the Dolphins and the playoffs was a battle with the troublesome Buffalo Bills. Over 70,000 fans jammed the Orange Bowl to watch Miami's quest for its 10th regular season victory and a slot in the AFC playoffs. Jim Kick slammed over for 3 touchdowns as the Dolphins racked up their highest point total in history, en route to their 6th straight win. The 45-7 win gave Miami a 10-4 record, the best of any second-place team in the conference, and sent the Dolphins into the playoffs. The victory capped a season full of achievement for the Dolphins. Although they lost in the playoffs, Miami had seen the development of a winning tradition that was felt by everyone. From a proud coach named Don Shula, to a star like Bob Greasy, on down to an unsung hero like guard Larry Little. After 4 years of losing, Miami had its first winning season, and attendance at home games almost doubled. Don Shula was named Coach of the Year. But the gold and glory have only begun, as the future holds greater rewards. A season ticket is an entree to a world of glamour and excitement, for the new-look Dolphins of 1970 have just entered a new era of fame and accomplishment. At the end of the rainbow, the pot of gold was the Miami Dolphins' first championship. Bob Greasy had arched a rainbow of his own, and the largest crowd ever to see Miami play signaled Paul Warfield's touchdown with a handkerchief salute. It would not be their last, for the Dolphins played a perfect football game. The turning point was a spectacular play that symbolized an entire season of teamwork. Dick Anderson's 62-yard trail of goal made Miami's miracle complete. The Colts were dethroned. The Miami Dolphins were champions of the American Football Conference. The team would be the youngest to play in the Super Bowl. And though that was doomsday for the Dolphins, the unhappy ending could in no way detract from the sensational sixth season that had gone before it. In their early years, the Dolphins had typical expansion pains. Then in 1970, a change took place. Don Shula, the NFL's winningest coach, came to Miami. Shula and his assistants, Clark, Armsparger, Keene, Scarry, Tassif, and Schnellenberger, made 20 roster changes and installed a complete new system. While other teams might melt in the Florida sun, they were determined the Dolphins would not. So a demanding conditioning program was a vital part of the new regime. In just 1 year, the new staff orchestrated a startling success. The team that had suffered 10 defeats in '69 earned 10 victories and a spot in the playoffs in 1970. So with sunshine superfans filling the Orange Bowl in anticipation of what Shula's second season would bring, the Dolphins began the 1971 campaign. It took a pass to Warfield with 2.5 minutes left to gain a tie with Denver. The season's second game brought Miami's first victory. In an awesome display of power, Jim Kick and Larry Zonka each ran for over 100 yards to beat Buffalo. The home opener saw an old Florida favorite on the bench, and 59 slips on the polyturf as the Dolphins slid to a 4-point loss to the Jets. With the new season now 3 weeks old, Miami had won only once, and the bright promise of the past seemed merely a prelude to disaster. The next Sunday against Paul Brown's Bengals, the Aqua Machine finally got in gear. Everything worked, including Don Shula's famed flea flicker from Super Bowl III. Bob Greasy threw touchdowns to Paul Warfield and Howard Twilley as Miami began a winning streak that would reach 8 games. Game number 5 introduced Jim Plunkett to the Dolphin defense. The Rookie of the Year was sacked 7 times, and Bob Greasy threw 4 touchdown passes, all in the first half, as the team rolled up their highest point total of the year, 41-3. In New York, the aquatic Dolphins ran wild in the rain. The Jets were zonked and kicked as Miami's big backs both went over the century mark for the second time. The early loss to the Jets was avenged, and the surging Dolphins were now in first place in the AFC's Eastern Division. On the team's first visit to the Coliseum, Greasy and Warfield stunned the Rams on the third play. The 74-yard bomb upset favorite Los Angeles and proved the Dolphins could beat the stronger clubs in the NFL. Jim Kick sat out game number 8, but his replacement, Mercury Morris, raced for 116 yards as Miami broke the Bills 34-0. The victory was the 5th straight and the first shutout in Dolphin history. The no-name defense that accomplished it played in a frenzy of hitting that handed out beatings to the toughest teams in football. For the unknown soldiers of the defensive line, the aim was to improve a pass rush that was last in the league the year before. Bill Stanfill, Jim Riley, Bob Heinz, and Manny Fernandez nearly doubled their sacks this season, and Miami ranked second. The heart of the Dolphin defense is its captain, 10-year veteran Nick Bonaconte. The middle linebacker's a great tackler whose experience allows him to anticipate where the ball is going to be. Bonaconte's leadership at linebacker was vital to Miami, for flanking him were 2 second-year men who made second-year mistakes. The young protégés were number 59, Doug Swift, the fine arts free agent from Amherst, and number 57, Mike Colon, nicknamed Captain Crunch for his head-on tackles. Both occasionally played man-to-man to supplement Shula's zone defense, and both defended well against the screen. While the linebacking core contained 2 sophomores, the secondary had 3. At the Russian roulette position of cornerback was Tim Foley, number 25, and Curtis Johnson, number 45, who in his second season as a starter saved his best plays for the biggest games. Johnson starred in the playoffs. Foley, the academic All-American from Purdue, demonstrated in his first full season fine tackling ability and remarkable agility in going for the ball. At strong safety was number 40, veteran Dick Anderson. His inspired play was a steadying influence on the young secondary. The third sophomore was number 13, Jake Scott, a man of many moves. Bobbing like a cork in a current, Scott's reckless running made him the second leading punt returner in the league, and his tackling and ball hawking earned him all-pro honors at free safety. So this was Miami's young, no-name defense. By season's end, everyone knew who they were. The season's 9th game saw hometown hero George Myra get his first start as a Dolphin. But in the second quarter, Miami trailed Pittsburgh by 18 points. Then Bob Greasy, who had been hospitalized with a stomach ailment, came off the bench. He and Warfield exploded for 3 touchdowns, that beat the shell-shocked Steelers. The 24-21 win over Pittsburgh proved the Dolphins could come from behind and was a testament to team confidence. The man who made the difference was Bob Greasy, who has grown up with his team. In his 5th season, the young quarterback was named the top player in the NFL. When Greasy puts his head in the huddle, he owns it, for his poise and intelligence work well within the Shula system. Greasy's partnership with Paul Warfield has made the flanker a marked man, but all season he repeatedly delivered the big play, the most complete receiver in the game. Warfield's liquid moves and adhesive hands have made him a legend in the National Football League. While Warfield brings great natural ability to his position, tough Howard Twilley does not. But the little guy has great hands and the habit of making the clutch catch in a tough situation. The offensive line formed a young but solid unit. The blocking of tight end Marv Fleming helped Miami lead the league in rushing. The center was number 61, former Cardinal All-Pro Bob DeMarco. The tackles were number 77, Doug Cruzan, and number 73, Norm Evans. But the pulling guards, number 66, Larry Little, and number 67, Bob Kuchenberg, made the biggest noise. Kuchenberg fought his way off the sandlots and waiver lists to become the most improved player in the Howard Johnson colors. When All-Pro Larry Little pulls out to sweep, he puts fear into the eyes of opponents. He's a devastating blocker who spurns finesse to simply blow his man out of the path of the ball carrier. Zonka and Kick, the Dolphins' consonant backfield duo. Totally inseparable, always an entry. Butch and Sundance are the best big back tandem in the game. Shula compares them to the Horning-Taylor acted Green Bay, but it's doubtful that any brace of backs have ever blocked so well for each other. Jim Kick is one of the best all-around backs in the game. In each of his 4 years as a pro, Kick has topped 1,000 yards both running and receiving. A true testament to his toughness and versatility. Larry Zonka, the first Dolphin to gain over 1,000 yards, is a throwback to the classic old-time fullback. At 237 pounds, with legs like tree trunks, he's impossible for one man to bring down. Like his sidekick, he rarely fumbles. In over 500 chances with the ball, each back fumbled only one time all year. With his relentless style of running, Zonka shrugs off tackles and injuries alike and punishes anyone who gets in his way. Miami's power-oriented attack, Mercury Morris is the change of pace, the fastball. For Mercury, his nickname says it all. Number 1 is appropriate for Garo Yepremian. The smallest player in the pros kicked a club record 5 field goals in one game and was the leading scorer in football. In the season's 10th game against arch-rival Baltimore, the Dolphins were shut out in the first half and trailed the Colts. In the third quarter, the offense exploded for 2 touchdowns in 90 seconds, and it was a different ball game. Late in the last period, with the score tied, Bob Griese led his team on a calm march through the vaunted Colt defense. It left the issue up to Yepremian, who coolly kicked the winning field goal. Miami had its 7th straight win, and their amazing upward momentum continued. On a clear, crisp Monday night in front of a national television audience, the Dolphins demonstrated their maximum skills against the Bears. The Chicago Massacre was led by Bob Griese, who fired 2 touchdown passes, and Larry Zonka, who scored twice and topped 100 yards for the 3rd time. The 34-3 slaughter ballooned the winning streak to 8 games, longest in the NFL, and gave Miami the best record in pro football. But amidst the triumph, a sour note sounded. Bob Griese injured a shoulder late in the game. It would hamper him for the rest of the season. The next Sunday, Jim Plunkett's birthday celebration and Griese's injury combined to end the streak in the 32-degree New England weather. 1 week later, Don Shula returned to Baltimore and watched the Colts control the game. The dazed Dolphins had lost 2 straight, dropped to 2nd place, and now even their position in the playoffs was uncertain. At the Orange Bowl in the season's final game against the Packers, over 76,000 saw their team regain the touch with their 10th victory. Appropriately for a team of destiny, the Colts lost, and Miami finished first in the Eastern Division. So the stage was set for the playoffs, and one of the most memorable football games ever played.
Offense, defense, our day, let's win!
Early in the game, it appeared the season would end on Christmas Day for Don Shula and the Dolphins. But Miami fought back, and midway through the 3rd quarter, trailed by only a touchdown.
Too much yardage!
All right, way to go, offense!
For the first time in 3 grueling periods of play, Miami had drawn even, but not for long. Faced with extinction late in the fourth quarter, Bob Greasy, flawless under pressure all day, rallied his team by hitting continually on third down. With time running out, the Dolphins had tied for the third time. But with just over a minute, the Chiefs suddenly struck back. Only 35 seconds remained, and Jan Stenerud had only to make a chip shot for the Chiefs to win. The Miami Miracle continued to sudden death overtime, where the first score would win. Tension and fatigue were mounting. An entire season would be determined by the next few plays.
It's 37 yards down. Narrated will attempt a 37-yard field goal.
The longest game was over. In an historic football game, the Miami Dolphins were winners and would become champions of the American Football Conference. No team in football has come so far, so fast. As the triumphant Miami Dolphins returned from Super Bowl VII, a throng of thousands gave a winner's welcome to the team, Coach Don Shula, and owner Joe Roberts.
This is the Vince Lombardi Trophy for the winner of the Super Bowl.
Arrowhead Stadium was the scene of the opener. Don Shula had set a single goal for the new season: to get his team in the Super Bowl and win it. Beating the Chiefs in their new stadium would be the first step. The irony of opening in Kansas City was apparent to all, especially Don Shula. For this was a rematch of 1971's Christmas Day playoff in football's longest game. Garo Yepremian's field goal in sudden death overtime had beaten the Chiefs and propelled the Dolphins into the Super Bowl. Now, as the Dolphins began the 72 schedule, all the psychological advantages belonged to the favored Chiefs. But Bob Greasy passed to an old target, Paul Warfield, and a new one, Marlon Briscoe, to lead the offense to 2 touchdowns. Miami's famous no-name defense was superb, stopping the Chiefs' running game, shutting off their big threat Otis Taylor, and harassing Len Dawson throughout the game. Miami's dominance was so complete, they held Kansas City without a touchdown until only 9 seconds remained. Miami had easily thwarted the revenge-minded Chiefs 20-10. The next Sunday in the home opener, Miami raced away from Houston in the rain. All 4 of Shula's backs, Morris, Zonka, Greasy, and Kick, scored touchdowns as the Dolphins won their second 34-13. Then came the Vikings. From the opening kickoff, it was a bruising battle. On their very first series, Fran Tarkington burned Miami with the bomb, and Minnesota led. But the Dolphin defense, led by Nick Buonaconti, number 85, kept Miami in the game by sacking Tarkington 5 times and taking away the long pass by employing a 5th defensive back in Shula's nickel secondary. Garo Yepremian's long-range field goals of 38, 42, and 51 yards kept his team close, but Miami trailed with less than 2 minutes left. Then Bob Greasy, in a masterpiece of clutch passing, moved the Dolphins downfield. Miami's great come-from-behind victory was their 3rd straight and left them the only undefeated team in pro football. The season's 4th Sunday was in New York's Shea Stadium, where the Dolphins completely stymied Joe Namath with their 53 defense. Bob Matheson, number 53, dropping back like a linebacker or rushing in like an end, frustrated Namath all day. Led by Bob Greasy, who enjoyed perfect protection, and Howard Twilley, who reclaimed his regular job from injured Marlon Briscoe, Miami won. Now, after only 4 games, the Dolphins already had a 2-game edge in the AFC East. San Diego was next, in the game that the Dolphins lost their leader for most of the season. A record Orange Bowl crowd of 80,000 watched in silence as Bob Greasy sat on the polyturf with a fractured leg. But Miami was well prepared, and as Bob Greasy was wheeled off the field on a stretcher, his successor, the last of the crew cuts, 38-year-old Earl Morrall, took his place at the line of scrimmage. With the poise of the old pro that he is, Morrall soon had the Orange Bowl rocking with cheers as he completed 8 of 10 and hit Paul Warfield and Howard Twilley for touchdown passes. The no-name defense got the team into the scoring column as well, when safety Dick Anderson went 35 yards with a Charger fumble. Miami had won its 5th straight to remain unbeaten, but the cost had been high. Game number 6 brought Buffalo, and with Greasy on the sidelines, the Dolphin defense took charge of the game, O.J. Simpson was held to 13 yards rushing in the first half. And in the second, Manny Fernandez stole a handoff and the ball game as Miami squeezed past the Bills by a single point. The following week in Baltimore, the Dolphins' attack opened up on the Colts. But the specialty teams were the real stars, blocking 2 kicks and recovering a fumbled punt. The Colts never got within the Miami 28 as the team shut out Baltimore. The season's second half began with Miami still unbeaten. In Buffalo, the ground game rolled over the Bills. The decisive factor was the magic feet of Mercury Morris, who stutter-stepped through the mud in one of his most impressive performances as a pro. Miami had win number 8, 30-16. The next Sunday, Morris continued his great play, scoring 3 touchdowns against New England. The entire offense was awesome as Miami passed their opponents out of the Orange Bowl. The 52-0 pasting of the Patriots made Don Shula the first NFL coach with 100 victories in only 10 years. In Game 10, Joe Namath's arm gave the Jets a 10-point lead. Then, with New York on the brink of another score, defensive captain Nick Bonacante turned the tide and the Dolphins surged ahead. The mercurial Morris was turned loose, churning and cutting through the Jet defense in a brilliant display of open field running. The win was Miami's 10th and wrapped up the Eastern Division title for the second straight year. On Monday night against St. Louis, Larry Zonka bulled his way for well over 100 yards for the 4th time this season, and a dazzling aerial show demonstrated Dolphin receiving depth. On defense, Miami capitalized on 6 Cardinal turnovers in a 31-10 romp over St. Louis. Next, in New England, Zonka's 45-yard burst earned him his second straight 1,000-yard season, as the Dolphins established a team yardage record, rolling up over 500 against the Pats. The win streak had now reached an even dozen. In Yankee Stadium, a relaxed Alex Webster and his Giants were determined to break the Miami streak. Shula's team was bucking the law of averages, and a hostile crowd of 63,000 who would have enjoyed nothing more than to witness a Dolphin defeat in the big town. But Jim Kick, averaging 11 yards each time he got the ball, put on a brutal display of power running. And great catches by agile Paul Warfield decimated the Giant secondary as Miami won with room to spare. The Dolphins were now only one game away from the NFL's first perfect 14-game season. The regular schedule's finale brought Baltimore and a Morrill to Warfield collaboration for another sensational touchdown. Warfield's touchdown and Garo Yepremian's field goals of 35, 40, and 50 yards accounted for all the Miami scoring. It was in this game that the Dolphin ground attack broke a 36-year-old record to become the greatest rushing team in NFL history and the first to have two 1,000-yard runners on the same squad. The no-names were again superb, completely shutting off Marty Dombrys and John Unitas for Miami's third consecutive shutout over Baltimore. But most important, the 16-0 win was Miami's 14th straight and gave the team an achievement unequaled in the history of the NFL, a perfect 14-game season. Shula and assistants Arnsparger, Clark, Keynes, Gary, and Tassif coached a team that ranked #1 in offense and defense in the NFL. Their perfect season was even more impressive because they accomplished it without their regular quarterback. However, Earl Morrill succeeded Greasy as leading passer in the conference and was named All-Pro. As good as Morrill was, no one can completely replace a Bob Greasy, whose strong arm and quick feet run enemy defenses ragged. The Dolphins' rushing record was nothing less than a personal tribute to Miami's fine offensive line of Jim Langer, Norm Evans, Doug Crusan, Wayne Moore, and Bob Kuechenberg. Their leader was All-Pro Larry Little, number 66, a human side, famous for cutting down cornerbacks. For the second straight season, Little was voted best offensive lineman in the American Conference. Shula's concept of a three-back offense brought a new dimension to the Miami attack. With Zonka's power, Kick's clutch, and the specter of Mercury's speed, they were the most prolific infantry in the annals of the pro game. They were also teammates in the truest sense, making the key block and cheering the others from the sideline. In the playoff with Cleveland, the Miami specialty team blocked a punt for a touchdown, and the Dolphins took an early lead. But the Browns came back to go ahead with slightly over 8 minutes left to play. Here, Miami showed why it was unbeaten. Earl Morrill and Paul Warfield combined to deliver the death knell. And a determined Jim Kick behind devastating blocking finished the 80-yard clutch drive in the Cleveland end zone. The Dolphins, in a pressure-packed performance, had come from behind to win. and Miami's inexorable march through the season continued. Next was Pittsburgh in the AFC Championship game, among the sign-carrying zealots in bedsheet-bedecked Three River Stadium. On their very first series, the Steelers scored and took the lead. Time after time, Pittsburgh's steel curtain defense stopped Miami. Then on a 4th and 5 situation came the most important play of the game and perhaps the entire season for the Dolphins. With Steelers seemingly running interference for him, punter Larry Seipel's risky 4th down gamble succeeded, and Miami was on its way. To take advantage of Seipel's great effort, the coach of the year made a difficult decision. To get the offense untracked, Shula replaced Earl Morrall with Bob Greasy. The results were not long in coming. On his first pass of the playoffs, the gifted Greasy split the Steeler defense with a pass that Paul Warfield took for 52 yards. Several plays later, Greasy pitched to Jim Kick, the money performer without peer, who scored the go-ahead touchdown. It was 1 of 4 that Kick would score in the 3 postseason games. Miami had its 16th straight and repeated as conference champions. For them, it was on to the Super Bowl. For crestfallen Steeler rooters, the banners came down for good. The Dolphins had ended their great season. For the Miami Dolphins, the Super Bowl was an entire season in one game. They were not about to lose it. Bob Greasy hit on 6 of 6 passes in the first half and threw to Howard Twilley for the game's first score. The rest of the Super Bowl served as a showcase for the Dolphins' variety of talents. The Dolphin defense was the real story of this game, stopping Larry Brown cold. Jake Scott was named Most Valuable Player for his 2 interceptions. And Manny Fernandez had the kind of a day a defensive lineman dreams about, as the no-name defense completely controlled the game. So playing an almost perfect football game in a perfect season, the Miami Dolphins were world champions. Only 7 years since Joe Robbie was granted a franchise in the old AFL, Miami not only won the Super Bowl, but had gone an entire season undefeated, a feat no other NFL team in history has accomplished. it is unlikely ever to happen again. For the Miami Dolphins, 1973 began amid the euphoria of victory over the Washington Redskins in Super Bowl VII. The sporting world hailed new champions and the coach who had led them to this moment in the sun. 5 months later, the Dolphins gathered again at Biscayne College for summer camp. It was a fact that not since the great Green Bay Packer teams of the mid-60s had a Super Bowl champion repeated the following season. But for Don Shula, there are no yesterdays, only today and tomorrow. His first step was to drive out complacency by pushing his team harder than ever through the stifling heat and sudden downpours of a South Florida summer. Shula hammered away at his concept of team, a concept that he delegated to each of his excellent assistants. In charge of the defense was innovative Bill Arnsparger. Given responsibility for the offense was veteran Bill McPeak. Coaching the defensive line was Mo Scarry, while Monty Clark coordinated the offensive line. Carl Tassif handled the offensive backs, and Tom Keene instructed the defensive backfield in the ways and means of the intricate Miami zone. For players and coaches, the team was the thing. Each man labored for this common goal, sharing the pain of post-practice sprints facetiously known as gassers. Gassers symbolize the commitment. Everybody ran gassers, from the oldest pros to established stars to rawest recruits. All the long summer, men who had won 17 consecutive games the previous season paid the price to get better, to return to the playoffs and improve upon greatness, to become the finest team in the history of professional football. The first step was the season opener against the San Francisco 49ers, but it was obvious that the machine was not quite ready. Miami fell behind 10-6, but then the Biscayne gassers came to the rescue. In the searing heat that reached 120 degrees on the floor of the Orange Bowl, the Dolphins kept their cool. With 4 Garo Yepremian field goals, they came from behind for a narrow 21-13 victory. Miami had won a record-tying 18th straight game, but had struggled in the process. Out in Berkeley, California, Oakland Raider fans figured the Dolphins were ripe for a skinning. Once again, the Miami offense was not quite right. George Blanda supplied all the Oakland points as the historic Dolphin win streak came to an end 12-7. The loss was sobering, but Don Shula quickly put it in proper perspective when he stated, "Maintaining the win streak would have been nice, but it wasn't our objective by a long shot. Our main objective is to get to the playoffs. That's all that matters." When Don Shula speaks, his team listens. The Dolphins would not lose again until they had clinched a playoff berth. Leading the way throughout the next 10 weeks was the no-name defense. The prime mover in the Miami defense is also its grand old man, number 85, Nick Bonaconte. Bonaconte anchors the middle providing the stability of experience and leading by example. Flanking 85 are the tough young outside backers, number 59, Doug Swift, and number 57, Mike Colon. Their credo is quickness, whether running down a sweep or initiating the blitz. And when the blitz is picked up, an equally quick front four is set free. Once again, number 75, Manny Fernandez, was beating frequent double teams to put on the heat. At the other tackle, number 72, Bob Hines, was so steady, no one noticed him except the opposition. From the outside, number 83, Vern Den Herder, swooped in to pick the passing pocket, and number 84, Bill Stanfield, supplied 18 quarterback sacks. When Bob Matheson enters the game, the front four becomes 3, and his number signals a new defensive alignment. The 53 defense takes advantage of Matheson's versatility. At times, he joins the pass rush like a down lineman. At other times, he drops to a zone and adds another dimension to the pass coverage. Dolphin Team D is awesome, but perhaps its most devastating facet is the intricate zone pass defense. Each man finding his pre-designated slot, filling, jamming, choking every passing lane, while a worried quarterback searches vainly for the seam. Often, time simply runs out. Or finally, a pass of frustration is released into the waiting trap. The outer perimeters of the trap are patrolled by cornerbacks Tim Foley, Curtis Johnson, and Lloyd Mumford. But the heart and soul of the Miami zone are the middlemen. Safeties Jake Scott, number 13, and Dick Anderson, number 40. A safety lives by intuition and affinity for the ball. There is not a better pair in football than Scott and Anderson. Whether coming up to meet a short yardage dive or cutting a receiver in half, they usually get their man. The Pittsburgh Steelers found out all about Dick Anderson during the first half of a Monday night game. Later, Shula called it the greatest half ever played by a defensive back. Against Pittsburgh, the NFL's Defensive Player of the Year totaled 4 interceptions for 121 yards and 2 touchdowns. While Dolphin team defense quickly reached its playoff peak, Bob Greasy and the Miami offense struggled to find the edge. Early season performance was inconsistent and sometimes downright strained. But the tools were there. A preseason injury to peerless Paul Warfield cut down practice time and left success inches away. But with proven pros like Greasy and Warfield, it was just a matter of timing, repetition, until the inches began to fall in their favor. In 1973, the potent Greasy-Warfield connection was used sparingly, but to great effect. Warfield caught only 29 passes, but 11 of those went the distance. But a healthy passing attack is based on balance instead of one superstar. So when Greasy looked to the other side, he found Marlon Briscoe, who led the team in catches. While Warfield and Briscoe balanced the outside, Greasy's passing game improved dramatically in the middle as tight end Jim Mandich joined the flow. Mandich stepped in when Marv Fleming was injured and chipped in his finest year as a pro. After a slow start, the precision passing attack came on strong. But the guts of Miami's growing powerhouse lay with the hard-rocked men of the offensive line. Number 62, Jim Langer. Number 66, Larry Little. Number 73, Norm Evans. Number 67, Bob Kuchenberg. And number 79, Wayne Moore. Five men coordinated like the fingers of a hand, opening awesome holes for the runners. A jitterbug named Morris and a bulldozer named Zonka. Larry Zonka is the consummate fullback. Unsubtle and direct, he offers no pretense to elusiveness, pursuing a straight-ahead course, punishing all who intersect it. They talk of Nagurski, Motley, Tank Younger, Steve Van Buren, yet it is unlikely that pro football has ever witnessed a powerback to equal Larry Zonka. While Zonka follows the straight and narrow, Mercury Morris moves to the rhythm of a different drummer. An explosive package of nervous energy, his style can best be compared to a balloon blown up near bursting, then let go. Never have two more diverse talents coexisted in the same backfield. Never has a defense had so much to worry about at one time. The speed and the power united to form the ultimate ground-gaining weapon. Zonka and Morris are two-thirds of a unique three-back offense, which Jim Kick fills out with his deft pass routes and sure hands. No true team is complete without its special people, Once again, punter Larry Seipo filled his role to perfection, sending up sky-high spirals for the ball hawkers of the Miami bomb squads to run under. After 9 straight victories, the Miami machine seemed complete, but one last test remained before the playoffs would begin. The wear and tear of 7 exhibitions and 12 league games began to take its toll, and a sudden epidemic of injury left the Dolphins vulnerable to ambush. On a bleak Baltimore afternoon, the upstart Colts did just that with a 16-3 victory. The defeat was hardly a crushing one for a confident team that had already clinched its division. Yet certain results were ominous. 3 more mainstays joined the ranks of the walking wounded. Therapeutic Miami sunshine welcomed the Dolphins home to close the regular season against the Detroit Lions. Kuchenberg, Foley, Bonaconte, Fernandez, Morris, Moore, and Little were missing from the lineup. But the Miami machine didn't miss a beat, with Zonka and Kick setting the pace. The makeshift offensive line, which included Irv Goody, number 55, maintained the high standards of performance. Defensively, the no-names included several new names, but still held ground impressively. Bruce Banyan, Larry Ball, Charlie Babb, and Malty Moore blended with regulars like Lloyd Mumford to stop the Lions stone cold. Against Detroit, one more criterion of lasting greatness was fulfilled. The machine now consisted of interchangeable parts, no one piece so important that it could not be replaced, while the machine continued to function at peak efficiency. Paul Warfield caught 4 touchdown passes for a 34-7 Miami victory. All Don Shula's summer camp goals had been accomplished. Just ahead lay the playoffs and the road to football immortality. First came the AFC playoffs and the eager young Cincinnati Bengals. Next came the AFC Championship and the confident Oakland Raiders. In September, the Dolphins had lost in Oakland. Now they would establish their dominance with a game-opening 80-yard drive. Even with Bob Kuchenberg's fractured arm in a cast and Larry Little limping, the machine rolled on, right over Little's block and into the end zone. On to Super Sunday to represent the American Football Conference against the Minnesota Vikings. On 3 successive Sundays, Miami had met the best pro football had to offer and decisively dominated each one. Miami's achievement was capsuled most eloquently on the dressing room blackboard when someone wrote simply, "Best ever." This is not the end of the Miami Dolphins story. Quite probably, it is merely the opening chapter. Joe Robbie, the man who brought pro football to Miami, also brought Don Shula, and in 4 short years, the Dolphins have traveled from the bottom to the pinnacle of their sport. The Dolphins are a young team, which under Shula has improved performance each season. There is no good reason for them to stop. Each player possesses a sense of accomplishment that shared success brings. The solidifying pride of being one part of the best ever. In the history of the National Football League, there have been many great teams, a proud heritage to inspire and challenge. The Canton Bulldogs, the Chicago Bears, the Green Bay Packers. But now, a new team was preparing to top them all. The Miami Dolphins had arrived. The Dolphins were born in expansion and suffered through 4 dismal seasons. With the 5th came a spot in the playoffs. The 6th brought a division championship. The 7th and 8th, world championships. Miami fans had witnessed the building of a dynasty, a gifted young quarterback, a brilliant wide receiver, a coach who would not settle for less than a man could give, a powerful fullback, a game-breaking setback, pro football's finest offensive line, and a no-name defense that personified team. As important as any player were the assistant coaches: Monty Clark, Tom Keene, Mike Scarry, Bob Snelker, Carl Tassif, and Vince Costello. Like the closely knit strands of an unbroken thread, each man blended his skill to the whole. Together they had dominated pro football for 2 straight seasons. But now the task got tougher. No team in history had ever won 3 successive world championships. Don Shula called it football's triple crown, and even some early storm warnings could not shake his faith. 5 regulars signed future contracts with the World Football League, and a strike disrupted summer camp. But this team smiled through adversity, determined to keep internal dissension from sowing the seeds of its own defeat. The Miami Dolphins, Don Shula and owner Joe Robbie, united with a common goal. 1974 would be their year to challenge pro football immortality and dream the impossible dream. Miami opened the season with cool confidence, but when you call yourself world champion, complacency can kill you. The eager young New England Patriots were anxious for attention, and they got it by surprising Miami 34-24. A team can claim to be number 1 after beating the best. All over the league, contenders geared up to take on the top dog as a team which had lost only twice in 2 seasons, fell 3 times in 74. Miami realized that the impossible dream would not be accomplished without a bitter struggle. When you're the best, every game becomes the Super Bowl. In the dying sun of defeat, Miami learned valuable lessons. When clouds of doubt envelop, pride, determination, and character become more than cliches. They win games. In Orchard Park, New York, the Buffalo Bills opened an early lead on O.J. Simpson's twisting runs and a little luck. Although unaccustomed to coming from behind, the Dolphins remained calm and relied on basics like Larry Zonka blocking and Mercury Morris running. Miami came back to beat Buffalo, but the next week they fell 14 points behind in San Diego as an unknown rookie named Don Woods surprised everyone. Once again, Miami came back, this time sparked by a rookie of its own, receiver Nat Moore. The Dolphins scored 3 times in the 4th quarter, earning a victory that was too close for comfort. But all year they specialized in heart-stopping finishes. With 21 seconds left, they trailed Kansas City before Larry Zonka rumbled in to save the day. While victory did not always come as easily as it had in the past, the brutal Zonka running style had not altered. But the punishing effect of Zonka's rushes worked both ways in 74, as once again the Dolphins were victims of their own success. Nagging injuries cut back on the playing time of Zonka and other key performers as everybody took their best shot at the world champs. With injuries unsettling the starting lineup, a bow-legged rookie from Arizona State stepped in to fill the breach. At first glance, Benny Malone did not appear to be a classic pro runner. Malone was all elbows and kneecaps, but the basics were there. Instant acceleration, exploding into tacklers, magic in the open field. In fact, funny running Benny Malone did more than fill the breach. When times got tough, he kept Miami in the chase. While Malone made a welcome rookie contribution, more help was coming from a seasoned veteran of the bomb squads. A kamikaze named Don Nottingham, number 36, was ready when Zonka couldn't play, and he delivered an excellent imitation of the original. The Malone-Nottingham backfield turned out to be one you could win with. Against Baltimore, the duo combined for 206 yards and both touchdowns in an important 17-7 Miami victory. Another changeover was shaping up on the outside. Miami started the season with the proven excellence of Paul Warfield. But as yet another symbol of success, Warfield was also a marked man, and injuries kept him out of 6 games. To pick up slack, the Dolphins looked to reliable Howard Twilley, number 81. While Twilley's every step was studied precision, a raw rookie named Melvin Baker was just learning to harness his skills. Baker had flat-out speed to go get the long ball, but sometimes he went too far. But Baker didn't slip away entirely. At season's end, he teamed with ageless Earl Morrall against the Patriots in a Miami get-even victory. While Baker had taken a whole year to find the end zone, another rookie receiver flashed brilliance early in the preseason. Number 16 was Nat Moore. He gave notice by going 80 yards in an exhibition game against the Cincinnati Bengals. When the regular season started, Moore changed his number to 89, won the Thomas Fitzgerald Award as Outstanding Rookie in Camp, and kept right on running. Speed-burning first-year receivers are not all that rare in the NFL, but the place they test your manhood is over the middle. A timid rookie will short-arm a few in heavy traffic, but Nat Moore turned out to be talented and tough. Moore, Nottingham, Malone, all three contributed, and when it came time to improvise and adjust, Reserve strength kept the impossible dream alive. In 1974, Miami came alive at night. Bright lights found the Dolphins at their best. Against the New York Jets, Bob Greasy filled the night air with footballs to tight end Jim Mandich. Miami took an early lead, but then the Jets came back behind another night person, Joe Namath. Namath brought New York to within 4 points. Then No Name took over. All during an anxious fourth quarter, Namath kept taking shots at the end zone, and No Name kept breaking them up. In the end, Miami rolled right over Joe and the Jets for a 21-17 victory. While 1974 had its share of struggle, the night air seemed to bring out smiles and Miami invincibility. In a twilight game against Atlanta, the Dolphins took their cue to blitz in and bury the Falcons. The offense flew on the winged feet of Nat Moore. Everything came together as the offensive line blocked and Don Nottingham blasted for a resounding 42-7 triumph. But the Dolphins' finest team effort came under the lights against Cincinnati. The Bengals had to win for a playoff spot, but Don Shula had his ball control offense back in high gear. Zonka shredded the Cincinnati defense, and when the running game turned lame, Greasy to Mandich went back on the air. The offense scored 24 points. The defense allowed just 3, as Curtis Johnson scooped up 1 of 4 Bengal fumbles. Yes, bright lights brought back the good times, but the Dolphin defense weathered its storms too. Injuries to Manny Fernandez and Doug Swift added strain, and the strike cut into cohesive team play. But No Name worked out its problems together, and the gang-tackling trademark never left. In the end, only one team in the AFC gave up fewer points, and that team was the Pittsburgh Steelers. Leading all the hitting was number 40, Dick Anderson, a mean man in the open field. Again, Anderson's running mate was Jake Scott, number 13. Scott is always around the ball to clean up loose ends. While Scott intercepted 8 passes, the job of pressure fell to the front line. Defensive end Vern Den Herder, number 83, anchored one side of the line. Den Herder's partner at the other end was number 84, Bill Stanfill, who after preseason injuries played himself into shape, practiced his moves, then put them to work. Stanfill keyed the pass rush all season and led the team with 10 sacks. Linebackers were juggled, but Mike Colon stayed put on the right side and dealt out solid licks. Taking over Swift's spot on the left was Bob Matheson, number 53, from the defense of the same name. Filling Matheson's old role was Larry Ball, number 51. Ball came from one side, Matheson from the other, and Nick Bonaconte blew up the middle. As always, number 85 was No Name's Rock of Gibraltar and main man on the goal line stand. Against New Orleans, the defense was perfect as Miami shut out the frustrated and unbelieving Saints 21-0. Once again, the Dolphins depended on Bob Greasy and Jim Mandich for points. All season long, Greasy and Mandich worked magic with play action. A play fake would send defenders one way, then Mandich would slide the other. Sometimes the only one left to beat was an official. Greasy's play-action fakes led to 6 Mandich touchdown catches and signaled a change in emphasis. From basic ball control in '73, Miami brought back the passing game to equal stature in '74. And as the offense opened up, Bob Greasy dusted off a few old tricks. Number 12 had not scrambled much in recent years, but now in tight spots, he used his mobility to excellent advantage. The offensive line was another unit shuffled by injury, but center Jim Langer, number 62, anchored the middle all year, providing protection for drop-back passing. Out of the pocket, Greasy's accuracy was amazing. Behind his line, Greasy completed over 60% of his passes and balanced the Miami offensive books, over 2,000 yards in both rushing and passing. While the world champions had their ups and downs in 1974, they still had an edge in the really big games. In the season's 10th week, O.J. Simpson and the Bills came to town tied with Miami for the Eastern Division lead, but the Dolphins had O.J.'s number. This game would decide the division title, and the Bill defense was ready too. With help, Bob Greasy stood up to the heavy pressure, and Miami jumped to an early lead. But Buffalo climbed back into the game on an incredible catch by J.D. Hill. The Bills' comeback tied the game at 28. Then, with 2 minutes left and 80 yards to go, Miami did what legendary teams are supposed to do. With yet another spine-tingling finish, Miami defeated Buffalo, then went on to win the division with an 11-3 record and clinched their 5th straight playoff berth. The road had been rocky all the way, but that made getting there all the sweeter. The impossible dream was almost within reach, but first a playoff showdown with the Oakland Raiders. An inexperienced Miami team had come to Oakland for its first playoff game in history. Now, 4 years later, the two-time world champions returned to be mocked by a black handkerchief salute. On the opening kickoff, Miami saluted back. Nat Moore's brilliant 89-yard return set the stage for one of the greatest gains in NFL history. Miami down 21-19 with only 4 minutes left. The determined Dolphins came back one more time. The impossible dream had ended. A classic struggle had run out of time with Oakland on top, 28-26. But there was no disgrace in defeat. Miami accepted their loss as they had welcomed their victories with dignity and heads held high. Don Shula looks toward the future, for the Dolphin dynasty did not die in Oakland. New goals await to be set and accomplished, and dreams for the future are the grandest of all.